Hi everyone, welcome back to the Excited Cats YouTube channel with me, Dr. Luqman, and today we're going to be going over another exciting cat topic. As always, I do sincerely hope that this video finds you all well and in good health, and I hope your cats are happy as well. Now, before we get started, this is your friendly reminder to please hit that subscribe button, do leave us a like, and of course, please leave us a comment as well. Now, last time we discussed how you can tell the age of a feral kitten or a stray kitten that you find abandoned somewhere. And this is very important because you kind of need to know their age in order to know what you're going to feed them, how much you're going to feed them, and how warm they need to be. Now, the warmth of a feral kitten or a stray kitten that you find and adopt is actually an aspect that is quite overlooked, in my opinion, and something that people don't consider as important as feeding them. Now, it goes without saying that feeding, a kitten is very important, but you have to bear in mind that if kittens are not warm enough, they actually cannot digest their food properly. And if they can't digest their food properly, then what you feed them is actually not really beneficial, and their GIT will slow down. This means that they might also develop issues with regards to either diarrhea or constipation, or look extremely bloated, and they're more susceptible to diseases. Therefore, you should not underestimate the value of getting a kitten warm before you feed them. Now, unfortunately, kittens, when they're born, actually cannot regulate their body temperature well at all. They rely a lot on their mother to do this, especially for the first 2 to 3 weeks of life. And this is why you will often see mother cats form what is called like an embrace around their kittens, where the mother cat lays down and all the kittens are aligned up next to her teats, and they're using their mom not just for food but also as a source of warmth. Now, of course, mother cats also have to feed and drink, so they do occasionally leave their kittens, and when they do this, kittens actually tend to huddle up in something like a pile or a creche to keep warm with each other's body heat, but they actually don't have the ability to regulate their heat that well. And until they're about like 4 to 6 weeks old, this is actually not a reliable way to count on kittens to keep themselves warm. Therefore, the task falls upon you. Now, the best way to keep a kitten warm is obviously through a brooder. Now, these are, equipment that you can purchase online. You can easily set up the temperature requirements on these equipments as well as the humidity control. And if you do have a brooder, this makes your job entirely super duper easy. However, it is also fair to point out that many people might not have a brooder, especially those who happen to stumble upon a kitten. And a brooder is really something that, cat breeders would keep around, or people who are very much involved in rescuing stray cats or kittens might have around. So it is completely understandable if you don't have a brooder. It is still a worthwhile investment if you're keen on adopting a kitten this way. But again, the circumstances where you might find a kitten are somewhat unexpected, and therefore it is somewhat unreasonable to expect that everyone would have a brooder at hand. So let's discuss alternate methods. Now, the first, and this is actually really, really important, and if you can actually pull this off, it'll make your job, like I would say, 5 to 10 times easier when it comes to raising a feral or a stray kitten that you've just adopted, is to find a foster mom. Now, when cats give birth, especially when their kittens are super young, they have a massive surge in maternal hormones. And at this age, if you happen to find a kitten that is abandoned by another cat or is just lost and is roughly around the same age as their kittens, there's a very, very high chance that a new mom cat would just accept these kittens as her own. And this is probably the best case scenario, because in this circumstance, you have a mother cat who is going to feed and keep the kitten warm for you. You have the kitten introduced to a new litter, and the litter can keep each other warm while the mom steps away temporarily to, eat or drink. And you also have the added benefit of a mother cat being able to teach this kitten, skills on how to be a cat. So this would be the absolute best scenario. Again, it is somewhat unexpected to just know, a random female cat with, newborn kittens, but you can reach out to your local, pet rescue centers or pet shelters or your vet clinic to ask if they do have a cat, or if they know of a cat who's recently gave birth to kittens, and you can therefore determine if she can adopt your kitten. Now, this would be the absolute best scenario for you outside of having a brooder. In fact, many people would argue that it's better than having a brooder as well, because you don't have to feed the kitten. So it is, the absolute best scenario. But again, there are circumstances where this is not possible. So what can you do in this case? You don't have a brooder, you just found a kitten, you don't have a mother cat, or you don't know of a mother cat, and you have to find a way to get this kitten warm. Now, first things first is something that many people overlook, and it's completely free and it's always there with you, is yourself, your body. Now, you generate body heat. And before this, I was working out just to show you guys how if you exert yourself just a little bit, you'll start sweating and stuff, and you'll be very warm. If I do look sweaty right now, I'm sorry, but it was for the purposes of education. And yes, so that was the example. You actually use your body heat to keep them warm temporarily. It's not a bad idea at all. In fact, it is one of the quickest ways and, entirely free way to warm up a kitten. And trust me, even though your body temperature is lower than that of a female cat, because cats naturally have a higher body temperature than humans do, the kitten will really, really appreciate it. And even with regards to cat's body temperature, the setting you would set a brooder at, depending on the kitten's age, is anywhere from 80 degrees Fahrenheit to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, you're looking at 90 degrees Fahrenheit for a kitten that is under a week old. You're looking at 80 degrees Fahrenheit as the absolute low point for a kitten that is around 3 weeks of age. So, point being that your body temperature is actually higher than this. Granted, you will not transfer all your heat to a kitten, but it's still very useful to wrap a kitten up and place it near you if you don't know how to keep a kitten warm. This brings me to my second point on how you can keep a kitten warm is clothing. Now, again, you don't specifically need cat clothing per se or pet clothing in a strict sense. You can use your own clothing. So I have here an example, a hoodie. Now, hoodies are very good for keeping kittens warm. What I would recommend is don't keep a kitten in the small pockets in front because the kitten might tumble outside if you're not careful. If you're in a bind and you don't know how to keep a kitten warm, you can actually use this little headpiece of your hoodie, and you wear the hoodie almost like a muumuu of sorts. So you kind of basically put your arms in here, and you're gonna eventually end up in a situation where you will find your arms coming through the front, and you can make this little pouch for yourself. And this pouch is where you can hold the kitten and you can gently wrap them. So hoodies are actually a really good tool for keeping kittens warm as well. Now, if you are someone who takes part in sport and you have a heating pad, a heating cooling pad for athletes who get injured or sprained or need that kind of sensation on their muscles or joints, you can actually use a warming pad. But over here, you have to be extremely careful, because if the pad is too hot, you're actually going to scald your kitten. So what I would recommend is to warm up the pad, wrap it in a towel or a blanket, because you're not supposed to put it directly on skin anyways. And the same applies for your cats. And then wait for around 5 to 10 minutes. So it's not as hot as it would be for you, but it is somewhat warm. And then place your kitten near the pad and see what your kitten does. Now, if your kitten's feeling cold, they will usually move towards the pad. But if the kitten is fine in the ambient temperature, they will usually move away or be near the pad but not directly on it. So this is a good way to gauge, how your kitten is feeling as well. Which also brings me to my next point. Simple things like a cardboard box are excellent for keeping kittens in on a temporary basis. You don't have to go, all out with, a cat bed or a cat house or a brooder if you're in an emergency. A box lined with some towels is fantastic. Now, try to opt for fleece towels or microfiber towels, as these are better because kittens are usually a bit wobbly on their feet, and sometimes their claws, as they're coming in, can get caught in towels that are old school cotton types with the little fibers hanging out, so you don't want that snag happening. Now, you might also have access to a heating pad made specifically for pets. And this is usually a device with a heating coil inside, and it has something like a covering on the outside, and it's usually wired, electrical wire, although there are some brands that are making battery operated ones now, but the principle is the same. You essentially plug this thing in, select a setting, and then you can place your cat near the heating pad. Again, with this product, it is very important to point out how to use it properly. So what you would want to do is place it under the box, but not entirely under the box, like the whole way. You have to make sure that half the box is not sitting on the heating pad, and the other half of the box is sitting on the heating pad. Because what this will do is basically allow your kitten the choice. If they ever feel too warm, they can crawl off the heating pad. And if they're ever feeling too cold, they can crawl back onto the heating pad. You don't want to make it to where your kitten has no choice, because sometimes the heating pad may malfunction. Fingers crossed it doesn't happen, and if it gets too hot, it's going to be very detrimental for your cat. You might burn your kitten. So you have to be very, very mindful of heating pads. They are a great resource, but you have to use them carefully. And again, it is recommended to buy from a reputable brand. And finally, it's the easiest way, but often many people overlook it when they're trying to keep a kitten warm, is control the temperature of your house. So if you have a thermostat, try to set your house to be slightly warm, towards the same settings as in the brooder. Now, I do understand this can be very uncomfortable for some people, and if you are one of these people, it's fine to go slightly lower, but then you have to bear in mind that you need to keep your kitten away from drafts, away from like an aircon vent, away from a fan, and away from places where temperatures quickly fluctuate. So like not in the kitchen, not in the bathroom, etc. And when you do this, you can actually make the ambient temperature slightly warmer for your kitten. This brings me to a controversial point, which is how some people prefer to put kittens in their bathroom because they think they can turn on the shower and make it extremely warm and steamy. Now, this is very controversial because most adult cats, when placed in such a situation with the flu, yes, they might benefit from the steam for a while, for about like 5 minutes of steam therapy for a cat having a flu and like congestion, probably good. Still needs control. A kitten usually cannot modulate themselves well enough to where they would know that they have to get out of the bathroom because they're still developing. They're like children who need your help. So I actually do not recommend keeping your kittens in the bathroom. It is also generally a very unsafe place for kittens because most bathroom floors are tiled and most bathtubs are slippery. And kittens are usually not very mobile. So what's going to happen is your kitten will have difficulty learning how to walk. And if they don't have a stable surface on which to walk on as they're growing up, they can develop what is known as splayed legs. In other words, their legs, instead of standing upright, will just splay. And then they're like always doing like a belly crawl as they grow older, which is not right. So this is the reason why I actually do not recommend bathrooms for kittens. And also the reason why most vets would recommend, a box with towels, blankets, really soft fleece, sweaters, etc. to keep them warm, but also to provide them with some friction so that when they learn how to walk, they actually have a grip on the surface that they're walking on. So that was it for today's video, guys. I really hope you found this topic helpful. Do remember that yes, feeding a newborn kitten or a kitten that you adopt is very, very important, but keeping them warm is just as important as well. And while keeping your kittens warm, you might not always have access to a brooder, but we've shared some tips and tricks of other things you might have lying around. And remember, if all else fails, use your own body because you are warm, unless you're sick. So if you have a flu or something, then you would not want to use your body. In fact, if you have a flu, please bear in mind the kitten can catch this flu. So it's best to give the kitten to someone else. But yeah, in other cases, when all else fails, use your body. Anyway, for now, this is me, Dr. Luqman, signing off, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.